Let's rock. The Monday, February 5th meeting of Health and Human Services Committee will come to order. Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Number 3, adoption of agenda. Do we have a motion and support? We have a motion by Romano, support by Carabelli. Any comments or discussion? Please vote. I think we'll get by if Commissioner Drolet doesn't vote on the agenda. What is, come on.
Do a voice vote and we'll move on. He's figuring out something's going on.
Yes, we need a voice vote because the electronic business went kaput again. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much. Number 4. Are you going to be okay? Okay, thank you. Number 4, approval of minutes dated January 8th, 2018. We have a motion by Leonetti, support by Brown. Any comments, questions? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Number 5, public participation. Anybody in the audience wishing to speak, you have 5 minutes to address this body. Going once, going twice, going thrice, hearing and seeing none. Gary's not even paying attention, so this is good. Public participation is now officially over. 6, presentation. GCSI update, Gary Owen. We need a motion to receive and file. We have a motion by Carabelli, support by Drolet. Gary, welcome and Happy New Year.
Thank you for having me.
Press the button so that your microphone lights up.
Is that better?
Perfect.
Thank you for having me. It's nice to be in front of everybody, and Happy New Year back. I'm going to just give a brief update on, legislative session, some of the calendar year, some of the things that I think are priorities that have been stated privately and publicly, and then talk about several Macomb specific items that we'll be tracking on your behalf that I'm interested in feedback on, and where individual commissioners or the board as a whole may consider weighing in as we move forward. So obviously the legislature is back in full session. The governor gave his annual State of the State and final State of the State speech last week, and as you might imagine, legislative session has now started. That will run regular through the end of March, essentially. The governor will give his executive budget recommendation, his final one, actually tomorrow, and will outline what his priorities will be budgetarily between, or I guess that would be Wednesday, but between now and in the end of the year. I thought it was fitting to talk specific budget and to this committee as well, as it's health related about community mental health specifically, and a few things that you all should be aware of, and I'm sure that you'll be hearing from John Kinch on a more detailed briefing. But originally you might remember that last year 17% reduction in Medicaid funding over 16 and 17 left about a $12.5 million hole. GCSI worked with John pretty closely and members of the Appropriation Committee in both houses to get as much as we could to try to fill that hole. The original number was 5.5 million, or 5 million, that we were able to get of the 12.5. A major priority for us is to try to get as much of the remaining funding, obviously, of the remaining 7.5 left in that budget. You'll know that both Oakland and Wayne have went through some pretty significant cuts as well, and were unable to recover any of their costs. So they, not necessarily as a county, but some of the interests have pushed back a little bit on Macomb getting more, but we've started the process now, working with appropriations members, working with the administration to try and get as much of the remaining 7.5 as we can in this budget cycle, which will start tomorrow. Commissioner Carabello?
Let's take questions in the middle so we can.
Yeah, I prefer to keep going through it.
I could stop after community mental health and allow for some questions if that works. But so the second piece on community mental health that you should be aware of is a program called the Disabled, Aging, and Blind, and essentially what's happened is folks are going to be redetermined, folks from the Medicaid population, and actually being kicked out of that program and being forced over to Healthy Michigan or to another program that is a massively reduced rate that the community mental health organization receives. So when these folks go, they're disabled, aging, and blind, and by the nature of the program, right, to go on Healthy Michigan, you essentially have to have the ability to improve. Obviously, if you are disabled, aging, or blind, you are unable to improve any of those, areas of concern within the community mental health program. So what's happening is a lot of these folks are going to be redetermined and being kicked off of this disabled, aging, and blind program and sent over to Healthy Michigan. So I believe the reimbursement for community mental health with those numbers, it's like $267, somewhere in that ballpark, for someone who's on the DAB program, disabled, aging, and blind. And when they get kicked over to Healthy Michigan for Mr. Kinch and CMH, that number goes from like $260 down to like $15. So there's a massive reduction. It's somewhere around $6.5 million in funding that will be reduced. And the Department of Health and Human Services has made pretty clear that they believe that they're not doing anything wrong. They believe that migration, in fact, is right. And so we're gearing up for a pretty significant battle in Lansing over this issue. On the 16th, Mr. Kinch is having a legislative breakfast, I believe, with stakeholders here in the county. I would assume a lot of folks will be there. And we're starting to develop a strategy with the administration. There will be a February supplemental, which we hope to get, a big chunk of to try and fill that $6.5 million hole. But statewide, the hole's close to $95 million for those 2 years. And so that's a major focus of ours heading into this budget cycle, is what they're going to do about that DAB program and how they're going to handle these CMHs, which are still, by the way, statutorily responsible for taking care of all these folks, despite the fact that they're getting $245 less per person. So it's obviously a major problem. It's something that we are attacking full bore, and if there is a supplemental that comes out in February, we hope to be part of it. That starts in the Senate. It should start within the next couple weeks. We hope to have some chunk of it that goes towards it and then clean up the rest of the $6.5 million hole in the full budget. Before I go any further outside of community mental health.
Okay, Gary, thank you. Commissioner Carabelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Owens. Not to mix this up, first I'd like to talk about the reduction that happened to Macomb County, and you said that there also was a reduction in Oakland and in Wayne. With that said, I'm under the impression that Macomb County had the largest reduction throughout the entire state of Michigan.
True.
With that said, is it true or not true that we may be doing something that the other counties are not doing, that the state is saying they don't want to fund us for?
It's probably a better question for Mr. Kinch, and he can talk to you about the difference between him and other community mental health programs around the state, because they're all put together differently.
So just for my edification, everybody got a reduction, but we got smacked a lot harder than our counterparts. Okay. With that said, you were able to, on behalf of the community mental health, acquire a one-time deal of $5 million for their budget to help offset that reduction, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Second thing is that you're gonna try to do your due diligence to recover the $7.5 million of operating expense, that it doesn't sound, well, I'm not gonna put words in your mouth. Does it sound that this is a done deal? You're able to get that 7.5 million?
No, I think that it's going to be part of the appropriations negotiations. It's certainly something we're going to try for.
You're gonna try, but in reality, what does your gut tell you?
It's early. I mean, he hasn't even, the governor hasn't made an executive recommendation yet. So a lot of it will depend on the revenue estimating conferences as we head towards June. The May revenue estimating conference probably being the most telling. If there's a large surplus, it will allow for Macomb legislators and us together with them to be more aggressive for those extra surplus dollars. If obviously there's no revenue and people are taking cuts, it'll be more difficult for us to try to go grab $7.5 million of general fund and fill that hole.
Okay, so if there's not a large surplus, it doesn't look likely that this will happen, is the way I'm taking this. And if there is, you're gonna be fighting along with a lot of other people to try to get that funding. So would you say if there is a lot of extra funds, it's a 50-50 shot that you can get that?
I wouldn't want to put a number on it. I think the last budget cycle, it was a really difficult fight, and we were able to get $5 million. So I wouldn't want to say that you know, it's impossible. I also wouldn't want to say that it's a done deal. I don't know any percentages.
That's why I said 50-50 if there was money. Okay, no, I'm just messing with you.
It's fine.
Then the next question goes into, this is special appropriations, and this is something that was already budgeted, that they're anticipating of you achieving this, that if we don't get it, there's gonna be major cuts of $7.5 million that was explained to the board. That's where I have a little agita. So with that said, we have to go into the next year after this. And you're gonna try to fight for more money, you're gonna have to eliminate programs, or we have to change the way we do business. Okay, I just wanna make sure I had an understanding of that. Now you said there was another reduction to this Healthy Michigan. My question on that, there was something a few years back that they talked about if states did X, it would bring more dollars in for them to do like this Healthy Michigan. Is this the program I'm talking about, the federal dollars? We're gonna give you more federal dollars to the state if you did it this way.
Yeah, so Healthy Michigan is basically the state exchange that was set up following Obamacare.
Right, and it's not producing like they thought it would?
No, I think that it is. Actually, enrollment's up. I think that in this specific case, what's happening is folks that are on in this specific DAB program, the Disabled, Aging, and Blind, they're being asked to go and be redetermined in the Medicaid program, and naturally they're being migrated over to Healthy Michigan, which is this big reduction in the amount of money CMH can get back from the state or from the feds, because now that patient's not in this program, it's in this program. It's an argument right now, it's a policy argument in Lansing about whether or not they are even eligible for Healthy Michigan, whether or not they can even be moved over to that program, or if it's actually the department's mistake and they shouldn't be classifying them under Healthy Michigan. That's probably the position of the CMH community, is that you're kicking people out of CMH that actually, you know, deserve this elevated rate because of whatever, you know, their condition may be. But now they're being kicked over to this program where they get a much reduced rate, but we still have to care for all of these conditions that the larger rate justifies. And the department is basically saying, yep, that's how we read the rule. So the conversation will be handled in the legislature. The conversation will be handled in the appropriations process in the short term, and then figured out how they're going to handle it in the long term from a policy perspective.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, and the list continues. Commissioner Drollet.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for your report. Just to clarify real quickly, you just mentioned that there was an interpretation of the rule. Is it that the state is moving these folks into the Healthy Michigan Fund, or is it the federal government rules are requiring the state to do that?
The state would say that it's the federal government rules, but the Community Mental Health Association would say that the state is making the wrong determination, and that it's very obvious, because part of the program in Healthy Michigan is that you have to be able to improve the conditions by which get you into Healthy Michigan and onto Medicaid. You can't improve, obviously, aging or if you're blind or disabled. So that fundamental piece needs to be figured out before they can even really dig into the rule. The state would disagree. The state would say that this is what they have to do by law. They have to migrate these people off of, that program and into another one.
Okay, do you know if the state has asked for an interpretation from the federal government or a clarification of the rule?
I don't. Actually, Mr. Kinch is coming up to Lansing on the 14th to meet with the state with us in the governor's office to walk through some of this stuff.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you very much. Next on the agenda, Commissioner Chairman Smith.
Thank you for coming out here. I know you don't always have the best news for us, but it's not your fault. So let me just ask you a question on this. You say we're going to be looking at a $95 million hole, at this point, not us, but I mean in general. Is that due to, are they putting this money towards different programs? Are we charging less? Is it less tax money coming in? Where is this money set to go if it's not going to be helping people in community mental health?
So the $95 million shortfall simply is the state interpreting that folks who were getting, I should say, CMHs that were getting reimbursed at $265 a piece per patient within or per person within, that DAB program now are going to be getting reimbursed at $15 a piece, somewhere in those two ranges. And the discrepancy between those two puts about a $95 million statewide hole into CMHs. So you have like the Lakeshore region out on the west side that has already exhausted their reserves, that simply can't afford or has to make major staff cuts because of this hole. You have, a similar case in Washtenaw, Macomb, Wayne, major hits. So the department has pretty much stood tall on this interpretation. I think the governor's office is looking at it really carefully and trying to figure out if they can do a one-time dollar amount. Does that allow for these CMHs to go forward without a hole?
Right. Well, I guess when you look at a $95 million hole for this side of it, it means $95 million less that they're going to be distributing. So that's $95 million more in their coffer, right? They're looking to do something with.
No, I think it's federal pass-through dollars.
Federal.
And on top of that, the CMHs are still required by law to see those people and to administer the exact same level of service.
Great. So, yeah, nice. So my last question is, and this is just more for my own benefit, you guys are obviously going to be fighting for us to get that money. But do you represent Oakland, Wayne, other communities kind of on the same fight? And how do you do that when there's a set amount of money, but you have 3 or 4 different people that you're fighting? You want to get us our 12.5, but at the same time you want to get, I'll say Wayne County, or I don't know who else I should probably know that, but how do you guys work that out?
So the algorithm will decide, based on the large, if there's a dollar amount, the algorithm for the state budget office will spit out what each county gets. On the 12.5 whole, we got $5 million, obviously specifically for Macomb, and Macomb is the only large county that we're the primary lobbying firm for. Wayne County also has a primary firm. We are not. We're the backup.
Okay.
And we don't represent Oakland.
Got it.
So for the 12.5, we specifically obviously are going after for Macomb. On this new pot of money, the DAB shortfall, that's going to be a statewide pot, and based on your population size is what the distribution is going to be. So for us, we're trying to get the full $95 million. If there is a separate appropriation that we can go after on behalf of Macomb, we obviously will. I just don't see there's no way to do that in this DAB shortfall. It's a little bit different than the other ones.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Thank you. Next we have Commissioner Kleinfeld.
Thank you. If they're required to provide the services and the funding isn't coming in, is that a Headley violation?
I don't think so, because it's a Medicaid implementation piece. It's obviously on the Medicaid side. It's not a state program.
So is it the state that has changed the determination on how the funding takes place, though, not the federal government?
Again, I think to Commissioner Drolette's point, the state is making the determination based on what they believe the federal rule to be. the community health, Michigan Community Health Association disagrees with that interpretation.
Okay, I guess they are now interpreting the rule that way without any pressure from the federal government. Would that be accurate?
I think it would depend on who you asked over there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Gary, a couple of questions. Going from $265 to $15 is outrageous. Now, the money is going supposedly to this temporary assistance for needy families and Healthy Michigan plan, correct?
Correct.
So those two are going to get in around $95 million.
No, because actually the reimbursement rate drops so much that nobody's going to recuperate those costs within these programs. It's just simply the way that an individual is categorized. And so their service will remain the same. The only difference is that CMHs are going to see a $95 million reduction in federal funding.
Well, okay, then you know, in all reality, our CMH is going to be around in 2 years. After this,
I think a lot of them are struggling. They're being asked to go into their reserves. I would say the Lakeshore region would be the first one that would say they have absolutely no reserves left. You know, there's a separate conversation being had on Section 298 and whether or not it makes sense to privatize some of these services. I know you guys have heard from Mr. Kinch on that specific piece. And what that looks like for the future of CMHs and obviously Macomb CMH in particular. So, yeah, I think that, you know, it's a difficult time.
well, you have a penchant for the understatement. My understanding, let's go back to the $7.5 million. My understanding was people were working on it last year. And they're still working on it, and nobody can give us a percentage of if that's going to come true or not, correct?
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that as we head in, we will certainly be obviously appropriations processes are annual, right?
Right.
So by law, they're able to state that. We will be working with legislative leadership to fill the rest of that $12 million. We're hoping that, you know, to be successful in that together with the Macomb delegation. And others that were kind of part of that original conversation.
All right. I'm getting a cut like that through CMH is going to be devastating to that department and devastating to the people that they help on a daily basis. I understand the pass-throughs from the feds and so on and so forth, but this is nuts. From 264 to 15, that basically closed the doors.
Yeah, it's a pretty significant reduction. I do think that, you know, that being said, I think we will be successful in getting some dollars back towards that number. I think that, you know, part of the problem right now is how convinced the department has been in their position on what that is and what that should be. And I do think that you're going to see the legislature work to take some type of action to kind of stop the bleeding in the DAB program, and then maybe work to even augment that dollar amount in the full budget. That's probably the goal, and it's probably realistic right now. So I don't think it'll be a full $6.5 million hit on that program. I do think there'll be something. I think there'll be some relaxation from the department as these negotiations heat up a little bit.
Right.
But obviously, hopefully when I'm back in 3 months, I'll have good news on that front.
Man, we can use some good news. All right. Any other comments or questions? Commissioner Drolet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for recognizing me in the second round. Just real quick, if the federal government is primarily funding these programs, wouldn't the state have an incentive to keep You know, why would they? The state's not really saving much money. Most of this money is coming to the federal government. Wouldn't the state government then sort of be supportive of keeping the situation as it is and not reinterpreting that rule?
Yeah, so I will get the exact details on the decision being made at the state level on the redetermination.
Okay.
There's an argument whether or not these individuals should even have to be redetermined. And that's the first decision that the state's making. And they may be, you know, again, in their attempt to revolutionize CMHs statewide, this can be yet another piece, another tool for them to try to rein some of these folks in. And so the first decision they're making is to make folks go and be redetermined in the Medicaid program. And once they're being redetermined, they're being shifted over to these other programs at a much lower reimbursement rate.
But the premise of creating Healthy Michigan was that we're going to leverage all these federal dollars. Mm-hmm. So I would think the incentive is to interpret everything for health, you know, in a way that would leverage the most dollars. And I don't know why the state would try to rearrange things in a manner that would allow them to get substantially fewer federal dollars. It doesn't seem to make any incentive sense.
Yeah, and that has to do with kind of the second decision that they're making, and that's what I need to get you more info on, is why they would be making that decision.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, any other comments or questions? Hearing and seeing none, we have a motion. First, okay.
I promise the rest of them won't be
Gary,
that long.
pray continue.
So I'm just going to talk about a few bills that we are monitoring closely, making sure and we'll keep you all abreast of some of these things moving forward. First and foremost, House Bill 5134 essentially would amend the State Convention Facility Development Act. You may remember that COBO's able to draw a large millage, and a big chunk of those dollars go towards debt service at the end of it. An individual from the UP, State Representative Bo LaFave, has a bill that will essentially take some of those dollars being leveraged by COBO and make them more statewide, take them out of the region, take them out of COBO, and put it, for example, for a northern state recreational fund. This is something that obviously is not good for the area and something that doesn't have a ton of legs right now. So they're trying to work to see if there's any sort of palatable path forward. I think it's going to have a really difficult time. The Senate Republican caucus met last week, and it didn't go so well for the concept as well. So I wanted to put it on your radar just as it gets developed, but I don't anticipate that bill moving. Another one, 5097, deals with the county right-of-way and something that we're watching pretty closely. Obviously, it would cap the amount of money that local units of government could charge some of these telecommunication companies for dealing with the right-of-way. This is a bill that has been around for a while, but has never had legs. So we're putting it on your radar because it's something that we're going to elevate probably a little bit of attention to as it started to get some more legs, and something that obviously could impact the county. There's multiple drafts going on, and it's in its like 17th iteration. So something that we want to put on your radar, and something that we will make sure works for Macomb in whatever form, that if it does pass at all, that it would work. Obviously working with Brian Santo and some of the folks over there, making sure that it works for their team.
Gary, question, and this is lining up again. Isn't the right-of-way business and so on and so forth, isn't that town-specific or township, city, or whatever specific?
Yes.
Even if it's on a county right-of-way?
Yes, so what the bill would seek to do was cap the ability for whatever local government that is to make sure that they can't charge these exorbitant fees that the telecommunications companies can't afford as they work in the right-of-ways.
Yeah, well, they seem to have made their bed, and now they're screaming that they can't sleep in it.
Correct. So the Telecommunications Association of Michigan, for the most part, is made up of some of these rural providers, and that's who's actually pushing the bill. So they obviously have some projects that they feel they're being overcharged for. They're trying to set a fee schedule that they can live with. The bill's had trouble for multiple years now.
All right. That being said, are we ready for another Q&A?
Always.
Commissioner Carabelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Owens, thank you. The state convention that you had mentioned, wasn't that part of the alcohol, the liquor tax that was funding Cobo Hall?
This has to do with the millage that is actually captured by Cobo. I believe it's a regional millage in Wayne, Oakland, and Macomb.
And that's why I'm asking this question, and I believe it's also, there's liquor tax that goes towards it as well. And with that said, what the hell would the northern people want to do with our millage that comes out of Oakland, Macomb, and Wayne, want to use it up north?
They believe that the particularly the bill sponsor believes that, Cobo is a statewide asset.
But they're not, okay. No, I know. All right.
Easy does it, Commissioner Carabelli.
That's obviously a problem, all right? And then there's an example of Oakland, Macomb, and Wayne paying for stuff again.
Yeah.
The second part is the road portion, the right-of-way you mentioned. I completely understand what they're saying, but at the same token, I can give you an example, and you can take this to Lansing, is that they turned around and repaved 24 Mile into Dequindre after Detroit Water and Sewer went through and had to tear up the whole thing. Then they had a problem with the drains. They had to tear it up again and repave 24 Mile into Dequindre. Now Great Lakes Water Authority wants, with the gas lines that all went through there. Now they want to come again with a 92-inch main coming again to tear up the same area. And they try to reach out to all the private parties to see if they want to get involved while we're tearing it up for the last time. This will be 4 or 5 times in the last 3 years. And they don't want to share their overall plan because it must be private of how they're going to do their underground work. So, major problem with them wanting to say, hey, you can cap this. Well, no, after you shut down a road 4 or 5 times in one community in that period of time, that's ridiculous.
Yep.
So, I mean, the governor, this is the first governor that said, hey, we want to get everybody together so when work has to get done, it can all happen at the same time. That never happened. And it's still not happening. And that's why some of these communities maybe are charging more or whatever it may be because of the discomfort of those residents are tearing up their front yard. They're parking 4 blocks away to walk to their house because they can't access it. So keep that in mind. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. They just hate 24 Mile Road. That's all there is to it. They hate them both. Commissioner Brown.
On the right-of-way issue, I can understand some of the need for the right-of-ways to have uniform standards, but there is a considerable amount of expense involved, and because this goes to the automated cars and the technology we're going to be putting along Mound Road as a prime example. We're going to add technology along roadways in the future to allow these cars to navigate, and we got to have the places to put the equipment to do it, and we have none of it in there now. So how do you navigate that is very critical. That's interesting. Capping the, I don't think I'll be paying attention to it, but keep us in the loop on that as that goes on. If there's any little, maybe more than normal, I'd be curious about that because it has a potential to be long-term effects across the state, and just because I don't believe they need caps on fees. They have to pay their freight because they're going to be, getting money for eternity as long as those things are in place there. So I don't know. So it's simply for that, based on what I know now. So, but that's a major issue for everything that we're going to build in the future. Every road, every sidewalk. Thanks.
Thank you. Seeing nowhere else, pray continue.
Couple environmental bills that I wanted you to make aware of. The Senate passed a package of bills that will create a new panel to oversee DEQ rulemaking authority, take it out of the hands purely of the Department of Environmental Quality. Those bills are now in House Natural Resources and will be vetted. This is a package that's been around for a while, something that happened in Indiana. Michigan Chamber is the one pushing the package, and I think that the administration started very much opposed. They've made a lot of changes in the two bills, and I know you have what I sent electronically so that you can click on, you know, some of the analysis that those bills have that can talk a little bit more about each of the members that will be part of this new rulemaking panel if it passes all the way and the governor's willing to sign it. I think I would mention that obviously with full Republican control now since 2010, you'll see a package of bills regularly now between now and the end of the year, and in lame duck depending on who's elected. That puts a lot of things that are in the rules, especially on the environmental side, on the natural resource side, take them out of the department's hand and put those things in statute where they believe they're safer and harder to manipulate depending on who is elected. So it's something we'll be watching very closely. And then, of course, the 201 cleanup criteria standards are still being negotiated, and those will be finished relatively quickly, but obviously impact every community in the state on you know, certain criteria and standards for certain chemicals. So strengthening all of those standards and chemicals. So should be pretty positive package. Any questions on the DEQ stuff? The last I wanted to mention,
Gary, one question on the DEQ stuff. Are they going to be responsible for the Enbridge line number 5 under the Mackinac Bridge?
So the governor asked Enbridge to temporarily stop moving crude under the Straits of Mackinac. They are in regular communication and negotiation with the administration. It's unclear how much authority they have on just, you know, stopping the crude.
Right.
But they're certainly asking publicly for that to stop for now as they work towards, you know, making sure the pipeline is safe. Enbridge has agreed to make a number of improvements. So we'll see how that all shakes out over the next 9 months.
All right. I'm interested in hearing what goes on with that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. I think that's all I have. I don't know if there's anybody, you know, with any questions overall or anything further that I might be able to get information for.
Any other comments or questions? Chairman Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Gary, I'm pretty sure we emailed you some questions about House Bill 5446.
Oh, yeah, I apologize. That's the from Representative Lucido.
Right. Can you explain this, and if it has any, with any of the repeals or anything like that, it has anything to do with this county?
So I was unwilling to reach Mr. Lucido today. I'm sure we will talk. I did give him a call after I received the email from Crystal to try to figure out what the impetus behind the bill was. And so if it works, then I can just figure out more details. Obviously, it was just introduced, and I don't have a ton of details on exactly what the intent, what his personal intent is, and I don't think it'd be fair for me to guess or assume without me talking to him directly.
Well, and for those of you that didn't read it or didn't get it, I think Patty sent it out, but it's a bill to repeal 1947 PA 261, and it's basically, on the face of it, says for populations of over 1 million, it's taking the onus of setting the pay for all the elected officials away from the board, and I think it's giving it to, I would assume, the executive. I'm not really sure how it works, but it's not real clear what's going on. On the face of it, it doesn't really look like it affects us because it's for populations of over 1 million. However, some of the repealing statutes, some of the statutes that are looking to be repealed with this kind of really cross over into our world of setting this pay and when we set it and all of that stuff. So I'm not, you know, I need a little more information as to...
I share your confusion when I was looking at it as well, so I'm hoping to clarify at least personally the intent for the representative, and as soon as I do hear more, I'll make sure that information gets there. So
okay.
It like I said, it's recently introduced. It's in committee, and I will get some more details and report back directly to you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comments or questions? Seeing and hearing none, we have a motion and support to receive and file. Yes.
I do have a question on something else. Road funding. I'm wondering if I can ask that question to him. Very simple question. Gary, thanks for coming here today. I just have a simple question, because residents are really ticked off on the condition of the roads. And I think they're also ticked off at the inaction of our state leadership and of both parties, Democrats and Republicans. I truly believe that. Does Lansing, either Republicans or Democrats, either or, Lansing government feel any urgency on finding funding for roads?
Yeah, so in the State of the State, the governor particularly said, I believe, $350 million, $325 million to go towards roads. And in addition, it will definitely be, you know, top 3 topic of conversation in an election year. Obviously, everyone is up this year: the Senate, the House, the governor, Attorney General, Secretary of State, all of Congress, and one of our U.S. Senate seats. As you articulated, I think it's at the top of everybody who lives in the state's mind as a major issue that needs to continue to improve. I do think that the governor is going to try to get as much money as he can for roads.
Where would that come from exactly? Is that a one-time deal?
Yeah, one time from the general fund.
But that doesn't solve it. See, that doesn't solve it. You need a funding source that's there every year, consistent, not a one-time. See, it's just inaction, you know. And what are they afraid of? That's what I don't understand. What are Democrats afraid of? What are Republicans afraid of? Why doesn't this get done? I'm hearing that people who run for office sometimes have to sign an affidavit. Joe Smith, will not raise taxes at all in Lansing. Does that happen? I mean, what's the special
it's getting in a little bit higher than my pay grade. You know, the reality is I think that there's different solutions to the road issue. Everybody disagrees about what those solutions are. They put a package forward that they believed stopped the bleeding. Some others didn't, and they're going to readdress it. I think this year they're going to take a hard look at it. I do also think with the composition of the legislature the way it is today, you're not going to see a tax increase in 2018. Period. It's just not going to happen. So, you know, there may be a shift in 2018. There may be a shift in the gubernatorial spot, in other spots. Who knows? But with this legislature, you can talk. You know, I feel very comfortable saying that, you know, legislative leadership has stated for the most part that, you know, a new tax increase is not the way to fix.
And how are they going to fix it? Are they going to go to church and pray, and the roads are going to be fixed? I mean, that's the way you fix roads. You invest in your community. You know, I'm sorry, but sometimes taxes are needed, and roads are way underfunded. We all know that. The gas taxes were 19 cents in 1999. They were that way for many years. They were raised 7 cents more to 26.5 cents, I believe. And that's not enough. And that's not a joking matter. And I don't understand the mindset of what they're doing. I mean, because I hear it from the voters, and we all hear that, and that's why there's more reliance now on local millages to fund things. And then there's the question there, are local millages good enough? Because I don't know if you know this, Gary, some commissioners and the county executive have floated around a countywide millage for road funding. So that's what happens when they aren't adequately funded in Lansing.
Yeah, and I don't have the exact details of the package that passed in 2015, and to be fair to legislative leadership that was involved in that package, I wish I did, because I could talk about exactly what the revenue was raised annually. I believe it was $500 million in new revenue annually. So yeah, I think that the governor, obviously, as you mentioned, there's conversations statewide that new revenue, more revenue is needed to get to where people want to go. The biggest problem is just a solution on how to get there. Is it a tax increase on gas? Is it a wholesale? Is it moving it to wholesale tax? Should you do it at the registration fees? Should that apply? Should you do a flat fee for used vehicles?
It's just the game up there, you know. It's shameful that this goes on and on, year after year after year. They're shorting us on road funding, and I'm so frustrated by this. And talk is very cheap. But thank you for coming here and listening, answering questions.
And we represent the road builders too, so I promise we're trying.
Thank you, Gary. Any other comments or questions? Hearing and seeing none, we have a motion and support to receive and file. Please vote. Hopefully our electronic I think mine still needs an impact adjustment. Okay, it passed. 12-0. Thank you very much, Gary. Stick around if you can. Okay. 6B, Director Rios, Veteran Services Fourth Quarter Report. Happy New Year, Director Rios. He'll push the button and you're on.
Okay. Not that I need to be recorded. I'm paranoid about that. So I brought some things to update. I have my quarterly report. Our data and our statistical data, it's hard to get it here on the 1st of January because we have a lot of year-end stuff. So thank you for pushing us off into February, hearing our report. Our numbers are the way they are, so if you have questions about those. Some of the projects I wanted to give you an update on. We did hire somebody back in September, and he left our office about 2 weeks ago. So we now have to go through the hiring process again and restart. So he was on probation, so that at least kind of was a little bit easier, but he willingly left. So he wanted to leave. He drove over an hour, and he had a lot of car problems too, so that was hard to keep him at the office. We had a pilot program since December 2011 with DHHS, and that ended in January. So we are no longer tracking data on every veteran that walks into DHS and gets a referral to our office. But we are, and we have implemented best practices, and they are going to do that across the state since we were the pilot. So yay me, yay Macomb, we set the standard. So it's been used, and it was successful. Our portal project, which is our portal of service, which now we call Matrix. I did email it, just an update, and you'll probably get that in the next few days. But we meet weekly, and this is the project that we have for surveys, and we just purchased the equipment. We needed to obligate the money by the end of last year. We did obligate it. We do have the contract. We do have the equipment already, and that equipment is now at another contractor's getting configured. So the only thing these tablets can do is do the survey only. They can't do anything else. And half the tablets are going to some agencies where they're going to use them as tablets, and the others are going inside kiosks. And the kiosks weigh about 50 pounds. But I have a 4-page update. Don't need to go through this, but we meet weekly. Our questions have been tweaked now that the survey's up and running, and we're using it internally. And it's one thing to see what we want, but once you put it on a tablet and you have to get it all in one screen, that's a whole nother story. Because we can't hover. You can't touch something and hover. There's no hovering on this tablet. So we have to try to condense. And that's what we're doing right now. But part of this project is the questions. We've already done the landing page and the consent page, and it's HIPAA compliant. Is what I call the back-end questions, but it's really the reporting data. We've already started collecting or deciding what can we report, what kind of data can we report back to you based on the questions that we're asking. So there's some things that are just, well, if the moon shined every day, you know, it would be great to eliminate the need for, you know, we want everybody to be on independent. As the beginning of our meetings, it was to reduce the number of people we have assisted to get them on a path to independence. Because ultimately, we want everybody on a path of independence and not needing so much county resources. So some of these questions answer that, and some of these questions, based on the results of the data, will answer that. in a black and white kind of way. So, and lastly, the books are on order. I ordered a book for all of you, each to have one, and it's what every veteran should know. And they were changing from 2017 to 2018, so I said, let's just wait for the 18, and they're going to be in by the end of the month. So around the 1st of March, I should have them for all of you. And so that's going to be nice for you. They're just small. Maybe put in your bag, and when you go and meet your constituents, you have a handy reference guide.
All right, very good. Thank you, Laura. Do we have a motion to receive and file? We have a motion by Kraft, support by Sauger. We have Commissioner Carabelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 2 questions for you. Number 1, we had talked in the past about you accessing information of people, of veterans getting out and your difficulty, and then you ended up.
I have not received that data yet. I requested it, but I have not received that data yet. I requested that a good 3 or 4 months ago.
Okay.
Maybe 5.
Can I ask you to send that information over to the board office here so we can see if we can help?
You mean the list of names?
You need that list of names, and I thought they were going to give it to you on a constant basis.
No, it was going to be a one-time.
Okay. Can we, can you, any information on who you asked that of to get you that information to the board here so we might be able to assist you? Because we did meet the individual in Washington, and they said that they should not be a problem for you to access this information. That's why I asked you that question, because I haven't heard back.
Right.
So we'd like to follow up on that. Second question, is there anything else besides that this county board can do to assist you in your endeavors?
Well, you bring that up. Well, no.
Easy killer.
Well, I'm sure he has a lot of things too. No, actually, our file room has maxed its capacity. So granted, I did get new space, and we're now using our new space, and thank you very much, the legal aid moved to another location in the county, so now I've gained that beautiful new space. And but instead of having more paper files, the goal is to make them paperless. And to do that, I had on my books 2 extra new employees for being service officers. And one of them was going to work with Michigan Works with the unemployment, but I thought one of them could work maybe 6 to 8 months scanning all those documents and making our office paperless. Because if there was a fire, it's one thing to have all our case files, because really we only have copies and the VA has originals, and we can always just access the VA system to get those. But our trust fund grant, they have copies in Lansing, but our relief fund, if we had a fire, we're done. We have no backup because they're paper. They're not paperless. Granted, we now keep them on a computer, maybe the last couple years, but we have 20 years worth of files that are part of the grant program. And this is the county grant program, so it's not Lansing's grant program, it's Macomb County's relief fund program. So I'm trying to hire a temp, I'm trying to hire somebody so we can start doing the paper, just scanning the documents. IT already said they have a scanner for me. They can bring over another scanner and have one person do this full time.
Well, Laura, we had somebody doing all the board files from Planning and Economic Development. But talk to IT, talk to Planning and Economic Development, contractor or whoever, but could be some major help in getting you paperless. Any other comments or questions? Chairman Smith.
Hi, Laura.
Yes.
2 things. How is that board of individuals that you, that I think it's kind of like an auxiliary board that you started a while back. Are you still utilizing those gentlemen?
No.
And reason behind that is?
I gave them a couple projects to work on, and one person responded. 2 people actually responded, and the rest never even came to the first meeting.
Okay. Seemed like there was a few people at the first meeting, I remember. That was it? Okay.
maybe two, okay, like four maybe came to the first meeting. And then when I gave them, hey, this is a great project, how about working on this
Yeah.
to work our transportation? Because one of them is a VA employee down
Sure,
in
I
Detroit.
remember that.
And so he gave us back all the data that we needed from Detroit, and he was excellent at giving us the data. And then everybody else kind of like took a piece of the pie. And yeah, we didn't hear back.
Okay. Well,
So-
remind us of that next time there's an opening and some people volunteer for that board. It's just
Correct.
something to, that we should know. Number two, I just wanted to explain something to you, and I'm sure you realize this, but a while back I had Patty email you. I had a conversation with Karen Bethanti. They said the project was in. She was willing to look at the positions that you requested just to make sure there was no problems. And we put that email out to you and everybody else that, from there, talk to her, and then from there follow whatever your procedure is, because everybody's different, and come back to the board, and we will be happy to address those positions once they get back to us. So I just wanted to clarify that, because some people seem to think that we didn't know that you guys know your own procedure, how you would have to get back to us. But I wanted you to know that we were willing to, we were standing behind what we said at the beginning. First, we want to look
Right.
at the compensation study and have you get the okay from HR, and then hopefully you deal with the powers that be and the channels and come back to us. So I just want to make it clear that we're still hoping
Thank
to
you.
see you very soon with that.
Exactly, because the compensation study results are next week. So
Yes.
we're all going to be there.
Great.
So hopefully we'll be able to move forward. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
So,
All right, any other comments or questions? We have a motion and support to receive and file. Please vote.
ta-ta-ta.
I'm gonna kill this thing. Yes. Well, hopefully it'll work. All right, Laura, thank you very much. The motion passes, I guess. Yes, 9-0. 12-0, all right. Number 6C, Martha T. Berry Monthly Report. Director Evans,
Thank you, Mr.
Happy
Chair.
New Year.
Happy New Year to you. On a side note, I'd first like to introduce, I have somebody with me, Tabitha DeLugi. She is a U of M Flint intern. Her first day is with us, learning about healthcare administration.
Welcome aboard.
All right. So with that, we'll get started. I'd like to talk about the financial sustainability. We had a conversation at our last meeting about that, and I want to continue that conversation at the front. I also have some slides about our current county relationship on flow of cash, and then I have another slide on quality and slide on physical plant. So this will be a brief presentation. At the last meeting, we had discussed concerns about our budget and how best to make sure that we were sustainable. It's a different position that our two entities have, because we're one entity in many ways. I am a county entity, discretely presented component of the county, and I need to make sure that it's financially sustainable without requiring any money coming from the county. At the same time, the county commissioners are required to have the good faith and be able to oversee to make sure that if we do things poorly, the county has to provide for that. So the reason that I attend these is to let you know that we're in good shape financially, and also let you know what we're looking to do to assure financial sustainability. Right after the meeting last month, I spent some time talking with the finance department, Steve Schmiegel, about the depreciation that is currently on the building that we have. Now, many years ago, that depreciation was put over just as an accounting change over onto the county books. And as we discussed the nuance of the Medicaid cost report and what is allowable expenses, he said, it'd probably be better that you talk to Steve Adair, who's had a great deal of experience with that. So I appreciate, Mr. Schmiegel recommending me to Steve Adair, because it really is something that is difficult to comprehend if you haven't been in the business a long time. I'll do my best to give you a simple explanation. Depreciation can be funded and is a reimbursable expense under the current reimbursement methodology. So I believe, Commissioner Carabelli, you had talked about how you're going to make sure that we can set a net aside to make sure that the building stays intact. This is a way that we can do that. Now, you'll see here in just a couple of minutes, I have a building use of over $1 million that's going to be done in 2012. And then I have a number of other legacy expenses that we just have to take care of. But what we are doing right now is providing $600,000 a year out of our operating budget towards the capital programs that we're doing right now, and using this portion of it. However, the depreciation still is on the books at the county. We can get reimbursed for that up to 65 cents on the dollar, up to anything over what we expend. And I would like, and Steve Adair agreed that it makes sense, they don't get any benefit from that, and we'd like to move that depreciation back over onto the books of Martha T. Berry. It is essentially it's a transfer from yourself to yourself, if you will, but the benefits of us being a discretely presented component means that's now a reimbursable expense. I can then begin to fund it in next year's budget, and we can get money back for that. In that way, I can put a capital program together that can be robust based on the depreciation that's in the building, and make sure we have money when the need arises. Does that make sense?
Commissioner Drollet.
Well, you asked, does that make sense? So you opened that up. But
I did. Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just quickly, you say you get reimbursed 65 cents on the dollar. Up to. Who do you get that reimbursement from?
The methodology is coming from the numbers that we submit in our cost report to the state of Michigan and to the federal government. We have two audits, one a Medicare audit and one a Medicaid audit.
So you get that money from the state and the federal government?
That is correct.
Okay. And right now, is the county getting reimbursement for that depreciation?
According to Mr. Adair, no. There is no material benefit for you because you're not under that reimbursement methodology.
Okay.
Only the facility itself is providing the services that we do under Medicare and Medicaid.
So if we shift it over to you, then we can get some. Then you are able to get some reimbursement from the feds and from the state that we're not currently able to do.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Commissioner Brown.
Commissioner Gillette asked most of my questions. So when you talked to Steve Schmiegel, what was the reasoning that they moved it in the first place?
He was not aware of why. I received that information from Jeff Ostermeyer from Plant Moran, who works with us internally. He said it was just part of a negotiation.
Is there a cost to move it over? Is there any?
I don't know if that's the case. I will find out, but we would incur the expense of that because that would also be reimbursable.
It seems to make sense. Almost too much sense, though. It makes me nervous. Thank you.
Thank you. Now you're making everybody nervous, Kevin. Please
It's
continue.
not the first time, Mr. Chair.
And I'm sure it's not the last. Pray continue.
Thank you. So let's take a look at what our relationship is right now. One of the concerns was that we're going to ask money from you, and we are not. Indeed, we're paying our way in its entirety. In 2017, our building use, which is for a bond ending in 2022, is over $1 million. The legacy costs that really are a drag on our budget, you see, I broke that out as the OPEB principal and interest, and the last payment on that is November of 2035, so we're going to have that for a long time. And we also have a cash contribution to make up what was the unfunded part of OPEB. We also have our pension, which out of pocket is $444,000. Utilities, of course, now that's something that gives us direct benefit operationally. We do adult day center, food and transportation. We purchase supplies, and there are some F&O repairs. When they do that, they bill us for those, as well as fuel. So you can see all of that is money that comes directly back to the county, that there is, other than having to manage the accounting of that, we pay our way entirely. I hope that's helpful to you. We'll move on. Let's talk about quality. When I was asked to be the interim administrator in early 2016, we were 1-star in every way. We were 1-star in our overall rating, in the survey, and quality measures. By the end of 2016, we had moved our quality measures up a little bit. I'm pleased to say at the end of 2017, we've continued our improvement towards excellence with a 2-star rating overall. Our surveys are still at a 1-star, and will be there for 2 more years because it is frozen. I'll talk about that in just a minute. But I'm very excited to let you know that our quality measures have increased to a 4-star rating. Let's talk quickly about our accountability on the physical plant that you've entrusted to me. We have our kitchen renovation and a dining room renovation that is progressing on time right now. We will be putting bids out for that. It'll be roughly $3.7 million. Our nurses station alcoves and dining area refresh we will continue as cash allows. Next week we'll be receiving the generator study to cover the entire building. I think either Mr. Carabelli or Mr. Brown, Commissioner Brown had asked me to make sure that we covered the entire building when we did that study. Our call light system is slated in the second quarter this year. Access control is currently in place, and we expect to have by the end of February our security systems for all of our doors to be actively engaged. Video surveillance right now is about 30% towards completion. We put the HVAC analysis on hold because of all the other projects that we're doing right now. So I'm pulling that off the table. These were all things that we talked about last year. I told you we'd be working on, and we are successfully moving in that direction. I want to talk about, just briefly, some of the accomplishments for 2017 as well. In addition to the quality, after 12 years of needing CENA agency, we ran the last 3 months of 2017 CENA, Certified Nurse Aide, agency-free. That's a huge, huge thing for us. And we will need, from time to time, CENA agency just to make sure that we have the number of staff that we need. But we're looking to make that permanent. We replaced over 130 mattresses that were long overdue and 40 beds. That was an investment of almost $90,000 in the residents' comfort. We implemented a CENA advisory team. That's the best of the certified nurse aides that meet with me monthly to explain the ways that they believe we can improve what's happening on the floor. I have many more that I can share with you, but many of the improvements that we made came directly from line staff saying, hey, Kevin, what about this? For example, oxygen, which we had locked on the basement away from all the care, required 2 people to go because our elevators are secure to go down to get oxygen. We moved those up on each of the floors. The nurses and the CENAs love that because they actually have the oxygen on the floor. They can get it quickly and take care of a resident quickly. Just one of many improvements that came from staff recommendations. With that, I open to questions, Mr. Chair.
Very good. Thank you very much. Chair is open for a motion to receive and file. We have by motion by Drollet, support by Toko. Commissioner Kleinfeld.
Thank you, Chair. I'm really excited to see where the quality measures have gone. I do have a question. You've got overall rating, we've gone to 2 stars, and survey is 1. Are they all 5-star categories?
Yes, they are.
Okay, would you explain what survey is?
Certainly. The survey is the state of Michigan, on behalf of the federal government, comes in and looks at our certification for Medicare. The survey process requires them to come in annually and look at us. In addition to that, any concerns under a list, we're required to do what's called a facility reported incident. And we have to put in within 24 hours any injury of unknown origin. So, for example, if there's a bruise on an elbow, we're required to report that. And we have to provide a 5-day report on that. And then they choose to come out or do a desk review. And we could get cited for what they call a deficient practice. And that could be anything from documentation or a process that's missing. Most recently, we received a harm citation because they called our investigation inconsistent and incomplete, even though we had actually showed evidence of 29 people interviewed. They said because we used different forms for interviewing them, that it was inconsistent. So we got a citation on it. So the survey teams come in, and it is a very high bar that they have, as they should, to protect the residents at the facility. But it is one that requires almost perfection, not just excellence. And we are working diligently towards that. The survey process is done annually and every time they choose to come in and investigate a survey or a facility reported incident. When I first started in 2016, we were getting visits weekly from the survey teams looking at facility reported incidents or complaints. By the end of 2016, it was monthly, and in 2017, we had 5 visits total from them.
Okay, do you know what the statewide average is on survey stars?
Well, on the survey process, they have it delineated specifically to the top 10% is 5-star. And
Okay.
And the bottom, the 1-star is 20%. And then they apportion it, and essentially it's on a bell curve. So you could be a 5-star, but if you're right on the edge and somebody else does a little bit better on a survey, you might not have any changes to your survey. And they'll drop
Okay,
it down.
but there's still 80% that have scored above us through the year for these last 3 years. I'm not being critical because I think you've done some major improvements. I'm just trying to learn.
No,
okay?
that's correct.
And then the overall rating, is the overall rating a combination of survey and quality measures? It's just you're at 2.5 and you haven't hit 3, or is it something else?
That's a great question. It's a combination of the survey, the quality measures, and staffing levels.
Okay. And we don't have staffing levels in here. Is staffing levels also rated with stars?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Then the next time you give us a report like this, could we have the staffing level section too, so that we
Certainly.
have the complete thing?
Sure. They're 4 stars all the way through.
Okay. 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 So the 4, and the 1 come up to 2.
That's correct, because of the 1-star on the survey. It's the heaviest weighted.
Oh, okay. The stars are weighted. The survey's weighted more heavily than the quality measures.
Yes, they are.
Okay. If there could be some sort of explanation on the weight too, that would be really great.
That would take a lot longer than time I have.
Okay.
But I'll do my best.
No, I didn't mean you
is-
have to explain the weighting. I just meant just survey is weighed this much. It's 3 sentences. I'm not asking you
okay.
to.
Thank you.
I'm not asking you to
explain
give
the
me a
whole-
Because
report.
the manual's about 60 pages.
Yeah, no. I just wanted to know how each one rates. That's all. I don't need a.
Very
Thank
good.
you, Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Sauger.
Yeah, Kevin, what is your current population? And it's
We're at 194 today.
194?
Yes.
And capacity is
We can serve 217.
to 17. Has it been going right along at 190 some, or has it been a drop or a...
It's been a consistent drop. We've stabilized back up onto the good side of 190. Last year we were down around 183, which creates some significant challenges for us from a staffing and cost level. But part of that is good news, and it travels slowly in the healthcare community. So much like we were still working through some of the issues that clearly Martha T. had, that we were correcting, you know, we are now having staff that are ambassadors for us. You know, many of you were through the dark days when our staff was not focused on care, they were focused on other things. You know, from what I understand, it was a challenge with the leadership too in communication. All of that bled through. In addition to those issues, we have a system that is intentionally trying to compress the cost curve by taking people out of the most important and the most costly areas and highest skilled areas to lesser skilled areas. So the hospitals are getting pressure to move them out, and we're getting a pressure to move people out and to not have people come in. What Mr. Olson talked about earlier is a fiscal disincentive that is hitting us with the Medicaid program. The Medicaid program is a nice way of saying it, passively enrolling even some people that are in our building right now. And then we get denied because they don't meet the criteria. We have to re-enroll them, disenroll them from the Healthy Michigan program and get them back into the traditional Medicaid, which is their right to do, but they're not aware of it. They're not aware that they're being passively enrolled into that program too. So, so there's a lot of stress to move people away. What I'm pleased about is we are one of the few facilities that has the ability to be the safety net for when those fall through. There is a great fight still going on for the Medicare dollars because they're much higher. And one of our benefits is that we're willing actually to take the difficult cases from other nursing homes because they don't want to have to deal with the risk or the financial loss of going to Medicaid. They prefer Medicare and private pay. So it's really been helpful to be that, and that's one of the reasons that we're stabilizing in our census. I do believe that that's our new normal, right around 190. You know, we're budgeting just slightly above that because that's where we have been traditionally, but we are managing to what our census is.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, you stated that real quick, like they were having you push out different people depending what their condition is. What category is that?
Well, there's something called a level of care determination tool that's been in place for a number of years, and you have to fit through one of what's called a door, and that means you have to have a specific list of multiple comorbid issues to be able to qualify for skilled nursing, and then you look at your financial components. Now, the financial components haven't changed much, but the skilled positions, the people that used to come to skilled facilities requiring 24-hour care and assist are now being said, well, you can be better served in an assisted living or in a group home. And then the other component of it is the post-acute care people. We used to, as an industry or a caring community, would get a lot from the hospitals, and they're skipping them altogether, saying you don't have to go to a skilled facility for rehabilitation. We can send you home and have somebody stopping at your house once or twice a day. Those are people that used to help subsidize for the loss on the Medicaid side, and because they believe they can do it less expensively in their home, they're moving them. So that's what's happening in some of the ways. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay, you're welcome.
All right, any other comments or questions? We have a motion and support to receive and file. Kevin, thank you very much. Well done.
Thank you.
Do a voice vote. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Sounds like 12 to 1 to me, 12 to 0 to me. Thank you very much. Number 8, new business. New business from commissioners. New business from staff. Okay. Commissioner Sauger. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm moving right along here. Number 7, correspondence. We have 7A DIA media alert get to know Detroit Institute of Arts Director Salvatore Salord Pons at Anton Arts Center on February 8th. And we have a newsletter, What Every Veteran Should Know, February 2018. Thank you, Commissioner Drollet. We have support by Kraft. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion approved 12-0. 8, new business from commissioners.
Yeah, this probably goes to Chairman. I read in the paper last week where the judge from St. Clair County has ordered that attorney back on the case for Karen Spranger. And at whose expense is that going to be? She got rid of him. I'm not asking you, Audrey. I want Bob to find this out through the legal department.
Marv, I was up there. It's at nobody's expense. She owes him money. This is her attorney. At this point in the case, the judge thought it best for the case and everybody, and since the brunt of the work was done, to order him to stay on. This has not come to us for payment. This is her attorney for an issue that was before she was clerk.
Okay, so no expense going to be forced on us?
Nope.
I hope not. Okay, thank you.
That's, Commissioner Kleinfeld.
Just, Commissioner Toko had talked about ongoing frustration with issues and problems coming from the department. And I know that we got a memo. I was absent that meeting, but we got a memo with regard to options at the state level. And we talked about maybe doing something, a resolution. I'd like to start moving on that. Maybe have a closed session to discuss how to proceed with what we'd like to see in that, from that attorney-client privilege document. But I think that we should move forward with that.
Just
Thank you.
on that note, I believe Scott will be here next Wednesday, so we can have a conversation and get that crafted if everybody chooses to go that way.
Thank you. Commissioner Kraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Friday morning, Commissioner Brown and I attended the Macomb Career Tech Awards breakfast, and there were winners from every district, every school district, and my district was the lucky one. They picked 2 out of the whole county to receive scholarships, $500 scholarships, and both of them came from my district, Max Leonard from Anchor Bay and Kyra Beatty from New Haven, so I just want to congratulate them. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Congratulations to everybody that's coming out of that program. Chairman Smith.
Thanks. I have a few things. First, you have a copy of your current board rules. We're going to be going over on Wednesday or Thursday, I'm not sure. Thursday? And GovOps. Okay, Thursday. If you have any rules that you would like to change, any rules that you think should be in here that you don't see in here, that's when we're going to start talking about them. We will forward our discussion from that meeting to Finance next week, and then Crystal will get us a lined copy of any changes or proposed changes to the board rules. I know Commissioner Kleinfeld had a few of them. If anybody else, just read through them and see what you think about them. You might want to talk to Commissioner Kleinfeld first because she has a whole host of them, so you don't want to double up your efforts. Talk to her about those. Next. And these kind of run into each other. We had a meeting. I know most of you know we had a meeting. Commissioner Kleinfeld, it was actually Commissioner Leonetti. Commissioner Carabelli couldn't make it at the last minute. Patty and Crystal with the executive's office. And there were some good things that came out of it and some not so good things that came out of it, but there nothing unexpected. We did at least agree to go on a pattern, we talk about it with each other right away. We get together as a group. We figure out if there's something that someone's doing that the other person doesn't like or agree with or think we should be doing. We always know it usually comes from they don't think we should be doing something. So we had that conversation. We talked about a few issues. One of them is the Older Adult Advisory Committee, but I'll speak to that in a minute. Basically what came out of it was everything we've discussed, we're basically going to go right is already at our attorney to talk with their attorneys about. They believe, even though the Court of Appeals opinion clearly states the opposite, they believe that if they don't think an ordinance that we pass is legal or constitutional, or they just don't like it, they believe that it's our job to convince them that it's valid. It's clear in the Court of Appeals, it's clear in law that an ordinance is presumed valid, and that it even states it in that Court of Appeals opinion from the court case we had, that it is up to the person challenging that to address it and bring that basically forward to court to challenge. So in a nutshell, they don't plan on really doing anything that we did with our ordinance, our appropriations ordinance, or any other contracting ordinance. And it's going to be up to us after the attorneys talk if they can't come up with something to move this forward. We kind of figured that might be happening when we didn't get a veto on it. Basically, the veto process is not something they plan on following either. They're just going to say, we're not going to do it. We don't think it's right. Not giving any credence to the fact that we think and have researched it and pretty much know that what we're doing is what we can do. That being said, we're to the Older Adult Advisory Committee. They are steadfast against the fact that we have the right or the legal authority to do something like that. The executive's office sent us a letter stating all the reasons why, none of which really were even close to what we were doing, but it sounded better. That being the case, Scott kind of basically, the letter that Mike just passed out is a memo from Scott basically stating that all of the contrary opinions, legal opinions, to their challenges on this Older Adult Advisory Board. So read through that. We're waiting for Scott to tell us a little more about his conversations with their attorneys. They had some brief conversations, but it didn't go anywhere yet. And that's where we are. If you have any questions on that meeting, like I said, Commissioner Kleinfeld was there, Commissioner Leonetti was there, Crystal was there, Patty was there, and so was I. I mean, it is what it is. At least we've decided to have a protocol in place. So that's what I'm going to take out of that meeting. And everybody was fairly cordial, I would say. So that was another plus. And we'll just keep hoping that we at least move on from here to get some of this stuff addressed, because we know, I know, I'm sure all of us know, we wouldn't have voted that way, that everything that we've done is well within our rights and our rules. And that's, I mean, the vote was 12-0 on the budget appropriations ordinance. So I know that everybody believes in the same thing that we're doing. So Commissioner Carabell, or Commissioner Leonetti, you have a question?
Just a point of information too. There was something we did find in our ordinance where some of the department heads, Jake Oakes, felt that he had to come to us more than we had intended. So I do want to make sure we look at that language to make it clear. If you remember, it was we all agreed at that meeting.
10,000 versus 35.
Yes, exactly.
So the gist was that at least the way they read it, they thought they had to come to us for every contract above $10,000, where in essence what we said was you have to show us every contract. Doesn't mean beforehand, but you have to show us every contract between 10 and 35, but the level is still $35,000 for our approval. The point being that we weren't sure that we were seeing what we needed to see on some of the other contracts, and some of them I don't think that we even saw. So I think we clarified it there, which obviously Steve was there from finance. So the main person that really needs to know that knows it. If they want to propose some clarifying language, that's fine. But I mean, it does say that we just need to look at it.
Yeah.
But, I'll be fine with any clarifying language, but I mean, that's what we meant, and that's what it says.
Okay.
And
All right.
Commissioner Kleinfeld?
Yeah,
I'm
and
not done yet, by the way.
on two issues, we said we would be willing to take another look. On any of the, we didn't get that back. On any of the issues we raised, we didn't get, we'd be willing to take another look. The other one was the, that they having to come to us before they go out for a bid or an RFP on something. And we said we would take a look at that one as well. And Executive Hackle did indicate that there's never been an example of him interfering with our jobs in the county. It's always been the other way around. And I didn't say anything at that meeting, but I got to thinking about it. Number one, the going to the legislature and having the rule changed on the drain boards, which he brought up that he did at that meeting, gives him a right to appoint, gives Candace a right to appoint, but they had encased in law how we would be appointed, so that was taken away from the chairs. So that, to me, would be an example of an encroachment. And determining from here on out, if he doesn't agree with an ordinance and he believes it's wrong, he's just said he will not enact it, I would think that's also encroaching. So those are issues we may be headed towards a legal rendering of who's right on those issues, and I felt like he seemed to agree that that may be where we have to go on some of those issues.
And I'll agree with you on that. And the nice thing, I guess, at the end of the day was that we did speak that if we had to go to court on any of these issues, we were going there for clarification. And that's, I mean, what I would like to hold to, and that's exactly what we would be doing, is going there for clarification and not trying to make a media circus out of this on proving who's right and who's wrong before the court even comes out. So that has been discussed several times. I'm hoping that that stays that way, because, I mean, based on the conversation, you have to know that a lot of these things are heading that way, because if I mean, we can make an ordinance, but they don't have to act on it. It kind of takes in the importance of being the legislative body and making ordinances for the county off of our plate. And that's certainly not something that I think that anyone's going to stand for up here. That's pretty much it for now. Yes, that's good. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Any other new business?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Oh, yeah. Yes. I mean, we are continuing forward. We've got a ton of, we have received a lot of applications from all over. I think Patty and Crystal are going to forward maybe your applicants from your districts who have applied for it. I've already had some, I'm not going to mention the names of the companies, but I've had some conversations with some very high ups at different healthcare company facilities, and already had them say, I have some great ideas for this committee, that we are looking to do some things here and there that we really would like, some feedback from senior, like a senior group such as this. So, I mean, I already have a list of things lined up for these people to do, and they were also willing to, they sent me a bunch of people that would be interested in being a part of this committee. So if you haven't found anybody, check with Patty. There might be someone from your district that has already applied for it. If not, like I said, I already can tell you there's a few things going on that this committee would be involved in early on that are not, that are not over the top crazy difficult, but they probably would be fun for a bunch of seniors that are doing this kind of thing. So anyway, anything else? Oh.
All right, thank you. Next, public participation. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak? Once, twice, thrice. We have a motion by Kraft, support by Drollet, adjourn. All in favor? All opposed? Thank you very much.